So it's been a while since I talked about legacy villains, how bringing them back properly can elevate them, but bringing them back badly can do more damage than leaving them buried in the past. And that's really the tightrope Doctor Who has always had to walk. When I talked about bringing back things like the Axons or the Mara, the reason those worked as examples is simple. They're flexible. They don't have decades of tightly woven continuity weighing them down. You can expand them, reinterpret them, even evolve them without breaking what came before. They're concepts as much as they are characters. But then you've got the other side of that coin, villains like Sutekh or the Silurian, characters with defined arcs, established motivations and very specific thematic weight. These aren't blank slates, they're pillars, and when you start changing them too much, when you start bending them to fit a new narrative rather than building a narrative around them, that's when things start to fall apart. You don't expand them, you dilute them. And unfortunately, they're not the only ones who've come back a little worse for wear. Welcome to the Snakepit, where we're full of bile and venom. I'm your host, Snake Damon, and today we're diving into one of the biggest casualties of modern returns, how you take one of the most important figures in Doctor Who lore and somehow strip away everything that made him work in the first place. Let's talk about Omega. Now, Omega isn't just another villain of the week. He's foundational, one of the architects of Time Lord society itself, alongside figures like Rassilon. This is a character whose entire existence is built on sacrifice, abandonment, and the psychological collapse that follows. Introduced in the Three Doctors, Omega wasn't just a threat, he was a tragedy. A man who gave everything to create something greater, only to be forgotten by the very civilization he helped build. And that's the key to why he worked. He wasn't evil in the traditional sense. He was broken, isolated in an anti-matter universe, sustaining reality through sheer force of will, only to eventually realize he no longer even had a body. Just consciousness, just existence without form. That kind of horror isn't about destruction, it's about identity, about what happens when you're reduced to nothing but thought, with no escape and no acknowledgement. By the time we see him, the damage is already done. His rage isn't random, it's earned. Even in Arc of Infinity, where he returns in a more direct antagonistic role, that core is still there. He wants to exist again. He wants form, recognition, validation. There's still a trace of who he was beneath the madness. And then we get to the modern return. This is where it all falls apart. Instead of that layered, tragic figure, what we're given is something that barely resembles the character at all. The intelligence is gone, the presence is gone, the weight of history gone. What you're left with is something reduced to instinct, a creature, a force that exists purely to consume rather than to be understood. And that's not an evolution of Omega. That's a complete erasure of what made him compelling. The visual design doesn't help either. Where the original had a kind of imposing, almost mythic presence, something theatrical but effective, this newer version leans heavily into CGI, and not in a way that enhances the character. It strips him down into something generic, a skeletal, oversized figure that looks more like a placeholder than a legend. It doesn't feel like an upgrade, it feels like a downgrade dressed up as spectacle. Then there's the lore, and this is where things really start to grate. Omega's story didn't need rewriting, it didn't need to be modernized or twisted into something simpler. The idea that he was always some kind of devouring entity completely undermines the tragedy of the character. He wasn't a monster from the start. He became one because of what was done to him. That distinction matters. Remove that, and you remove the entire emotional backbone of the character. It turns a Shakespearean fall into something far more shallow. But perhaps the biggest missed opportunity is the Doctor's reaction. Because historically, the Doctor doesn't just fight Omega, he recognizes him. There's history there, respect even. A sense that this is someone who shouldn't have ended up this way. And yet in this version, that connection barely exists. There's no weight to the interaction, no attempt to engage with who Omega was or what he represents. It's just conflict, resolution, done. For a character this important, that's not just underwhelming, it's borderline disrespectful to the legacy. And that leads into the final problem. It feels like nostalgia without purpose. Bringing Omega back should mean something. It should add to the mythos, deepen the lore, challenge the Doctor in a way that goes beyond physical threat. Instead, it feels like a name drop, a recognition point for older fans without the substance to back it up. And for newer viewers, it doesn't even function as a proper introduction, because the character they're seeing isn't the character that mattered. The end result is something that looks big, sounds important, but ultimately feels hollow. And that's the danger with legacy villains. If you're not careful, you don't just fail to do them justice, you actively diminish them. And that really is the takeaway here. Not every villain needs to come back, but if you're going to bring them back, you need to understand why they mattered in the first place. Otherwise, you're not reviving them, you're just wearing their face. Thanks for dropping by the Snakepit, where we thrive on untapped potential and lost opportunities. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell, like the video, and leave your opinions in the comments, where naturally I won't read them.